Imagine being the most powerful man in the world, ruling over millions of people, commanding the greatest army ever assembled, with unlimited wealth at your fingertips, and yet spending your nights writing about how not to become a slave to your own ego. This is the paradox of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor who could have had anything he wanted, but instead became obsessed with one singular goal: mastering his own mind. While other emperors before him built monuments to themselves, threw lavish parties, and indulged in every pleasure imaginable, Marcus Aurelius was sitting in his military tent on the cold frontier of the Roman Empire, writing philosophical reflections about death, discipline, suffering, and detachment. The question we need to ask ourselves is this: why would someone with absolute power choose to live like this? Why would an emperor surrounded by luxury dedicate himself to a philosophy that teaches you to expect nothing, accept everything, and remain unmoved by both success and failure? By the end of this video, you're going to understand why Marcus Aurelius is not just some historical figure from ancient Rome, but someone whose philosophy is actually more relevant today than it was 2,000 years ago. You're going to see how his approach to mental mastery can fundamentally transform the way you think, work, and navigate your life in a world that's constantly trying to destabilize you. And if you want to go deeper into mastering your mind the way Marcus Aurelius did, I've put a powerful program in the description called the Subconscious Millionaire System. It helps you reprogram your mental patterns exactly like the great thinkers did throughout history, but using modern tools and methodologies that actually work in today's world. Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD in Rome into one of the wealthiest and most influential families of the empire. From the moment he entered this world, he had access to everything: power, education, connections, entertainment, and a life of absolute comfort that most people could never even dream of. But here's where his story becomes fascinating, because unlike almost everyone else born into that level of privilege, Marcus Aurelius made a conscious decision very early in his life to reject the easy path. While other young aristocrats were indulging in banquets, pursuing sexual conquests, gambling, and wasting their days in meaningless entertainment, Marcus was doing something completely different. At 15 or 16 years old, he started adopting an extremely simple and disciplined lifestyle. He slept on a hard floor instead of a luxurious bed. He wore plain clothes instead of expensive robes. He ate simple food when he could have had the finest delicacies from across the empire. This wasn't because he was forced to live this way. It was a deliberate choice, and that choice reveals something profound about his character. The turning point came when he discovered Stoicism, a philosophical school founded centuries earlier by thinkers like Zeno, and later refined by philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca. The central idea of Stoicism completely transformed the way Marcus saw the world. You don't control the events that happen to you, but you absolutely control how you react to them. This might sound simple, but when you truly internalize this principle, it changes everything. Marcus understood that his mind was either going to be his greatest weapon or his worst enemy, and he chose to train it with the same discipline that a soldier trains his body. This wasn't just philosophy for him, it was survival training for the mind. Marcus Aurelius never wanted to be emperor. This is crucial to understand, because it makes everything about his life different from almost every other leader in history. He was spotted early on by Emperor Hadrian, who recognized something unique in this young man who cared more about philosophy than politics. Hadrian arranged for Marcus to be adopted by his successor, Antoninus Pius, who then spent years grooming Marcus for leadership, teaching him about governance, ethics, responsibility, and the weight of power. During these years of preparation, Marcus wrote something that reveals his entire worldview. Power is a moral test. Think about what that means. Most people see power as something to acquire, to enjoy, to use for personal gain. But Marcus saw it as a test of character, a challenge to see whether you could wield influence without becoming corrupted by it. This perspective is almost unheard of among people who actually attain power, and it's the foundation of everything he would later become. In 161 AD, when Antoninus Pius died, Marcus Aurelius became emperor, and unlike virtually every other emperor before him, he didn't build a cult of personality around himself. He didn't commission massive statues in his honor. He didn't rename cities after himself. He didn't claim divine status. Instead, he approached his role with reluctance and responsibility, understanding that leadership wasn't about glory, it was about service and duty. For Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism wasn't just an intellectual theory he studied in his free time. It was a survival manual for how to govern the most powerful empire in the world without losing your mind or your soul in the process. He knew that power reveals who you truly are, and he was determined to use Stoic principles as a shield against corruption, arrogance, and moral decay. If Marcus Aurelius had lived during peacetime, his philosophy might never have been truly tested. But instead, his reign was defined by absolute chaos. From the moment he took power, he faced constant warfare on the frontiers of the empire, with Germanic tribes threatening the northern borders and Parthians attacking in the east. Inside the empire, he dealt with political conspiracies, betrayals from people he trusted, economic instability, and one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, the Antonine Plague, which killed millions of people across the Roman world. Marcus spent more time on military campaigns than he did in the palaces of Rome. He lived in military tents, slept on the ground, endured harsh weather, witnessed the deaths of his soldiers, and carried the weight of every strategic decision, knowing that thousands of lives depended on his choices. This is not the life anyone imagines when they think about being an emperor. There were no celebrations, no comfort, no peace. Just relentless pressure, day after day, year after year. And yet, every single night, no matter how exhausted he was, no matter how dire the circumstances were, Marcus Aurelius wrote. He didn't write to glorify himself or to create propaganda for future generations. He wrote to remind himself of who he needed to be. He wrote to anchor his mind in rational principles so that the chaos around him wouldn't corrupt his judgment. He wrote to practice gratitude, humility, and acceptance in the face of things he couldn't control. One of his most powerful reflections, when translated into modern language, essentially says this: you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. This isn't meant to be depressing or morbid. It's a tool for clarity. When you truly accept that your time is limited and uncertain, you stop wasting mental energy on trivial things. You stop getting offended by petty insults. You stop obsessing over outcomes you can't control. You focus on what actually matters, acting with integrity, treating people fairly, and maintaining your inner peace regardless of external circumstances. What Marcus Aurelius was doing every night wasn't just journaling. It was deliberate mental conditioning. He was reprogramming his subconscious mind to respond to stress, fear, and pressure in a completely different way than most people do. And this is exactly the kind of work that's taught in the subconscious millionaire system. If you want to train your mind the way a Stoic emperor did, but with modern psychological tools, the link is in the description. The book we now call Meditations was never meant to be published. Marcus Aurelius wrote it entirely for himself during the darkest moments of his life, primarily during military campaigns when he was surrounded by death, uncertainty, and the burden of impossible decisions. This wasn't a philosophical treatise designed to impress intellectuals or educate the public. This was a private journal, a brutal and honest dialogue with himself, where he forced his own mind to stay aligned with Stoic principles even when everything around him was falling apart. When you read his reflections, you're not getting polished wisdom or motivational speeches. You're getting raw mental training. He constantly reminds himself not to complain, not to feel sorry for himself, not to waste time on things that don't matter. He tells himself to act with righteousness even when others act with malice. He reminds himself that he's going to die, so he should focus on what actually counts. This isn't motivation in the modern sense where someone hypes you up and makes you feel good temporarily. This is discipline in its purest form, training your mind to function correctly under pressure, regardless of how you feel. If Marcus Aurelius were alive today, he would be battling the same mental enemies we all face, just in different forms. Instead of political conspiracies, he'd be dealing with algorithmic manipulation. Instead of barbarian invasions, he'd be fighting dopamine addiction from social media. Instead of plagues, he'd be navigating information overload and constant distraction. The external circumstances have changed, but the internal battle remains exactly the same. How do you maintain clarity, focus, and integrity when the entire world is designed to destabilize your mind? One of the most powerful aspects of Marcus Aurelius' philosophy is this. While most people spend their energy trying to change the world, trying to control others, trying to force reality to match their expectations, Marcus focused entirely on changing himself first. He understood that the only true power you have is over your own thoughts and actions. Everything else is outside your control, and when you accept that fully, you become unshakable. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, likely from the same plague that had ravaged his empire for years. His son Commodus succeeded him, and unfortunately, Commodus was the complete opposite of everything Marcus stood for. Commodus was vain, cruel, obsessed with gladiatorial combat, and eventually became one of the most despised emperors in Roman history. In many ways, this is tragic because it shows that even a philosopher king couldn't guarantee that his values would survive through his heir. But here's what's remarkable. While the political empire Marcus Aurelius ruled eventually crumbled and disappeared, his philosophical legacy has survived for over 2,000 years and continues to grow stronger. Today, his writings are studied by entrepreneurs building companies, athletes competing at the highest levels, military leaders making life-and-death decisions, creators navigating public criticism, and students trying to find meaning in a confusing world. Why do all these different people from completely different contexts keep coming back to Marcus Aurelius? Because he teaches something that never goes out of style: how to remain stable in an unstable world, how to maintain your values when everyone around you is compromising theirs, how to stay focused on what matters when endless distractions are competing for your attention, how to build inner strength that doesn't depend on external validation, success, or approval. The ultimate lesson Marcus Aurelius teaches us is brutally simple, but incredibly difficult to actually practice. You don't control the world. You don't control other people. You don't control whether you succeed or fail by conventional metrics. And you don't control the chaos that will inevitably disrupt your plans. But you absolutely control your mind, your thoughts, your reactions, and your actions. That's it. That's the only real power you have. And according to Marcus Aurelius, that's the only real wealth that exists. This is why billionaires can be miserable and why people with almost nothing can experience genuine peace. This is why some people with massive audiences feel empty and why others with small platforms feel fulfilled. This is why external success doesn't guarantee internal stability, and why someone living 2,000 years ago in a completely different world can still teach you exactly what you need to know today. If this video resonated with you, don't stop here. Understanding Stoicism intellectually is valuable, but real transformation happens when you reprogram your subconscious mind to operate differently. This is exactly what the subconscious millionaire system teaches you to do. It combines ancient wisdom with modern psychology to help you build the same kind of mental mastery that Marcus Aurelius practiced every single day. The link is in the description.